All right, well, hello everybody. The drinker is here, and I'm joined by a very special guest tonight. This is going to be a little bit of a change from the norm because obviously, normally on this channel, we cover movies and TV shows and video games. But today we're going down a slightly different path, and we're going to venture into the world of wrestling. And, well, the man that's about to join me for this interview this evening is someone pretty damn special in the business. He has been wrestling for more than 30 years now, and I had to write down all of his accomplishments because there's so damn many of them. Off the top of my head here with what we've got, he has had 35 championships in total. He's a six-time WWE World Champion, a nine-time WWE Intercontinental Champion, a Triple Crown Champion, a Grand Slam Champion, and a Superstar of the Year Slammy winner. He's also lead singer for the heavy metal band Fozzy, which is pretty fucking cool. He's an actor, a presenter, and an author. And, well, he's here to talk to me this evening. He is the one and only Chris Jericho. Hey, man. Love the
Well,
shades.
man, how you doing? That's what I wanted to fit
Awesome.
in with your vibe here.
Awesome, man. Yeah, you just need to get drunk now and you're good to go. So I appreciate it.
Well, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, right?
Exactly. That's the motto I live by, my friend.
Oh, me too. Me too. Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, man, it's where on earth do I start with your career? Because, like I say, you have been wrestling since what 1990. I think you made your professional debut, and you've been pretty much at it ever since then, and you're still active in the business. So, incredible stuff. I mean, I guess. Um, Well, where I was going to start was I know that you'd studied under Stu Hart when you were just getting into it and training and stuff. I mean, the stories that come out of that family and that kind of dynasty within wrestling are legendary. I mean, what was that like studying under Stu?
Well, it wasn't really under Stu. It was kind of the last dregs of what the Hart Brothers Pro Wrestling Camp was. That was in 1990, and they had just shut down Stampede Wrestling about 6 months prior. So the dungeon, which everybody heard about, was
Yeah.
still kind of a thing, but mostly for us, it was Hart Brothers in name only. So I did train with Stu a few years later, but at the time it was mostly just how it is, man. Like it's not false advertising, but it pretty much is just trying to kind of rook the kids to come in there and train at the Hart Brothers Pro Wrestling School, and there's really no Hart Brothers involved. But it was a
Hmm.
good way to start, and I met Lance Storm there, who wrestled for many years in ECW and WCW and WWE. So we kind of were able to push each other, even though the trainers weren't quite up to snuff. They were just kind of local guys. The actual foundations of what to do when you were in the business, and how to kind of have a basic match were established basically just by Lance and I figuring out on our own.
Nice. Damn, man. Um, I mean, because I when I came to do this interview, like I'd actually read your autobiography years ago. Like a friend of mine that I used to work with, he was a big fan of all things wrestling, and he gave me two autobiographies. He gave me yours, and he gave me Bret Hart's. And it was such an interesting contrast between the two because his is like it's very poignant and very heartfelt and very like serious. He went through a lot of stuff in the wrestling business, and then yours was so great because it was really funny, it was really self-deprecating, and it was really just like a great ride and a really uplifting story. And it was just interesting to compare the two. But yeah, man, it just particularly in those early days, I guess when you're just starting out in the business, like I imagine there's a lot of stuff that's just like put together on the night or figured out on the go, and it's kind of like guys are just thrown into it to some extent. I mean, yeah, like your days on this sort of independent circuit, like what was that like when you're just doing like these regional wrestling events and stuff before it really like took off? Like what was the vibe like doing that?
Well, dude, I mean, it's like anything else that you start. You know what I mean? 45 minutes is not enough time to go through 32 years of Chris Jericho.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, you start out kind of at the bottom like anything else, whether you're in a rock and roll band or whether you're a wrestler, whether you are doing your own podcast. You know what I mean? Like you gotta pay the dues. And the thing about it was, I was able to move through the ranks on a worldwide basis because when I first started, it was all about bigger guys and, being a certain height of 6'8" or whatever it was and 300 pounds. And I wasn't that. I was 5'10" and probably 200 pounds, 210. But I realized that even though I couldn't be the biggest guy physically, I could have, the biggest charisma and the biggest personality. So I really focused on that. And I took a lot of the qualities from rock and roll frontmen from, Freddie Mercury and David Lee Roth and Mick Jagger and Bruce Dickinson and those types of guys, Paul Stanley, that were very dynamic frontmen that really had the crowd in the palm of their hands. So I brought that into wrestling as well, knowing that if I could get the crowd going, even though I wasn't the biggest guy physically, I could, bring something extra to the table. And I think that's one of the reasons why I have had 32 years, not just in wrestling. I'm not just a wrestler. It's show business, right? It's knowing what fans want, and it's not really putting any limits on yourself. And I've been doing that since I was 19 years old. And here I am, 52, still using those same principles and qualities that I kind of started cultivating way back when I was a teenager.
No, it's awesome, man. I mean, like, yeah, I remember some of the promos you would cut, and like, damn, like, it was like the kind of witty, sharpness to it, but also just being able to really work the crowd. Like, that's such a great thing to see in a wrestler. Like, it's such an important aspect of it, I guess. Um, but yeah, I was,
Well, once again, that's not from wrestling. That's just from being in front of a live crowd, right?
yeah,
It's show business. I always treated wrestling as show business. So, when you go see a comedian or you go to a Broadway play or you go to a rock and roll show or anything where there's a live element to it, the ones that are the best are the ones that can work the crowd and have the crowd in the palm of your hand. And, that's why I love going to seeing, bands that have been around for 40, 50 years because the guys just know exactly what to do to have the crowd going crazy. I mean, I saw Elton John's final tour just about 6 months ago. He doesn't even hardly walk anymore. He just kind of hangs around, but it's still amazing because he knows how to get the crowd involved. And that's basically what I do in all elements of Chris Jericho. If the crowd is entertained and if the crowd is engaged, they'll always pay money to come see you perform, no matter what it is. That's the secret.
I was gonna say is yeah, because like when I think back to when I was a kid and like the wrestlers that I was enamored by back then, it was guys like Hulk Hogan, who cut an amazing promo and like they could just like stand with a microphone and rant and like what you gonna do, brother, and just like absolutely captivate the audience and like Ultimate Warrior back in the day. Like I loved that guy. Like he was crazy and he was over the top and like quite often I didn't really know what he was talking about, but man, he 100% believed in it.
There,
And
there was there
yeah,
was there was an energy to those guys. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Whether you know what they're talking about or not, it doesn't matter. They could be reciting a Chinese food menu. It doesn't make a difference. It's all about the energy that they bring, and once again, connecting with the crowd. If you can connect with the crowd, you'll always have their attention. So it really doesn't even matter what you're saying. But obviously, some guys are more wordsmiths than others, and other
mhm,
guys just have the energy and the vibe and the intensity, and that translates as well.
yeah, yeah, very much so. And like just it's not an easy thing to stand, I guess, in front of like uh, an arena filled with people, like 20,000 people, and look relaxed and look confident. But to be able to do it, it's a hell of a
Yeah,
skill, and
it's
it's
not easy, but if you can do it, then you'll have a gig for life. And that's the
yeah,
thing I love about all of the same things that we've been talking about. If you have, I saw Mick Jagger in Hyde Park last summer. He's 80, but he's still the best frontman in rock and roll because there's just a vibe, there's a connection, there's an energy, there's a style and a confidence, and all of that goes back to live performing, and wrestling is part of that. But when you're live without a net, you get one chance. If you're making a movie, you can take two, take 10, take 20, and they'll
yeah,
switch the angles. And if you fuck up your words, I'll just get it the next take, or we'll get it from the side. And you don't have that option when you're wrestling or when you're playing with a band. It's like one take, and if there's a mistake, you just got to keep rolling. And that's
yeah.
there's an art form to that, which is not easy to do. And if you can do it, you'll make it. If you can't, you'll have to find something else.
Yeah. The guys who can recover from like a missed line or something, like that's impressive,
Yeah,
you know.
it's a saying in wrestling or in music. I mean, there's not a missed line or a missed note or a bad note unless you let everybody know it. If you just
Yeah.
continue on and don't even acknowledge it, most people don't care. If you're live, that's one thing about nowadays. I was talking to Lars Ulrich about this from Metallica. I was watching something from 1989 where all the guys switched instruments. And James went on drums and Lars went on vocals and the guitar player switched. And it's like it's hilarious watching Lars trying to be the front man and his range is about this long. But I was talking about he's like, you have to understand back then there wasn't everyone holding up their cell phones and filming. It was
Yeah.
just a live show. And if you were at the live show, you just loved the fact that Lars is singing. And there was nobody filming it to go online the next day going, that's out of tune. That didn't work. He's out of breath. That's changed now because everybody has a phone. So no matter what it is you do, it's going to be online hours later. And
Yeah.
that kind of influences things nowadays. You have to always be cognizant of that. So once again, you have to evolve and morph with what's going on in the world today. And now we do live in a digital age where everything you do is up online minutes after you do it.
Yeah, it's man, it's an interesting world that you have to deal with now. Like you say, you're kind of always under pressure to always be on and always be like on the ball because you can't drop it because someone's going to be there
Yeah.
to pick up on it. And yeah, it's a bit of a crappy gig in some ways. But yeah, when you're, it's funny. The one that always sticks in my head, right, when I think about, um, you know, things going wrong on the night, it's always been the Shockmaster from WCW
Right.
when he has to crash through the wall, and it was just like,
Terrible.
man, you feel for everybody involved in that. I'm impressed that anyone kept a straight face. Like it was impressive. Just
It's
like being able
terrible
to
though.
carry on with the bit.
When you're live, it's like there's been times when you'll be in the middle of the ring cutting a promo and you forget completely what you're supposed to do. And it's like, what do? You better come up with something because you just want to stand there and just like,
Yeah,
go completely like, you can't do that. You know what I mean? And once again, if you're filming a movie or a TV show or whatever it may be, all you got to do is say line, and then they tell you what your line is, and you continue on. When you're live, there's no one to yell line at unless the guy who's beside you maybe can whisper under his you're supposed to say when the match is or whatever. Like
yeah.
it still happens. It still happens no matter who you are. We're all human beings. So once in a while, you get that mental block. You're like, I don't have a fucking clue what I'm supposed to say right now. What am I going to do? The seconds feel like hours. Like I'm just standing here. I don't know what I'm supposed to say or do. I mean, that's just once again, there's nothing like performing live. It's the most exhilarating thing, but it's also absolutely terrifying if you really think about the crux of what it is that you're doing.
Is it the same like doing house shows as it is for like live TV tapings? In the sense that like you still have the same pressure to perform and stuff, or do you feel a bit more relaxed when you do stuff like that?
I mean, yeah, I'm more, but once again, there's pressures to both. I mean, just in different ways. So you still want and need to do your absolute best, but there's just different ways of doing things when you're in both elements.
Yeah, yeah. The one thing I wonder about as well, because obviously you performed in WCW and WWE in your career, right?
Yeah.
And like whenever I've heard people talk about being in WCW, like wrestlers giving their anecdotes and stuff about it, like they all talk about how it was kind of disorganized and like Bischoff didn't really know like what he was going to do like day to day and stuff, and then you got guys like Russo coming in and doing like crazy bookings. Like what was it like for you, like being part of that? Like, what was your experience of it?
Well, I mean, I was very young at that point in time. I was in WCW when I was 25 to 28, 27. So I mean, now in AEW, I know what I'm doing every week for the next couple months. I mean, we're very much into writing the stories and keeping everything rolling, keeping everything going. But back then, you're just happy to be on the show, happy to be on national TV. So you can get into the Bischoffs and the Russos and all that shit, but that wasn't really my wheelhouse at the time. I was
Yeah,
just there wrestling, and I'd have some ideas for stories and sometimes I would know what I was doing, and other times I wouldn't. And sometimes things made sense, and sometimes things didn't make sense. But you know what? What did it matter to me? I had no say in it either way. Whereas now, as you progress to becoming more of a top level guy, obviously you have way more say in what it is that you're doing. But you know, at the end of the day, it's what Tony Khan wants. That's the most important thing. And I try and kind of give my boss what it is that he's trying to get out of it. Same thing that I would do with Vince McMahon the last few years I worked in WWE. But when I first showed up in WWE, I didn't have a demand of going, I need to know what I'm doing every week or else it's not my place. You know what I mean? I'm an extra on a set, or you know, a low level guy on the set. When you become the Brad Pitt or the Tom Cruise of wrestling, maybe you can call your shots a little bit more, but it takes a long time to get there. So it always makes me laugh when people debate the Bischoff and Russo, and it's like, you know, at the time it was working, and nobody really seemed to have a complaint about it at the time. I mean, WCW was a little bit disorganized, but it's live TV, man. Things change, and things change to this day. So I was never on that trip. Like, man, whatever you give me to do, I'll make it great. Sometimes it's frustrating, but it's my job. If I show up for a Steven Spielberg movie and Steven Spielberg goes, okay, you're going to get your arm blown off in this scene, and I go, no, my character would never do that. That makes no sense. You know what they do? They fire me and bring some other fucking guy in to get his arm shot off. It's a deal, man. You know, it's only rock and roll. So I never really took that side of things too seriously.
I mean, to be fair though, you made a hell of an impact in WWE when you came in, because it's like I don't think it was like '99 you came in, like towards the tail end. It was like playing on that you know, Y2K stuff, and then like within a year you beat like The Rock and Stone Cold in the same night and became like the undisputed champion. Like that was a pretty remarkable thing to have like gotten to that level like relatively quickly.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, I think that there was always a lot of potential seen in me by the powers that be, by Vince. And you know, when you first go to a new place, there's always going to be politics. If some guys want you there, some guys don't. Some guys think you're not as good as people tell them that you are. But you just have to prove yourself. It's like anything else, you know. It's just like with Fozzy. It's like, well, he's a wrestler. He can't possibly be a singer. And then you just gotta keep singing great songs and writing good material. And suddenly, oh wow, he's fucking great, and or whatever. And it's the same thing with wrestling when I first get to WWE. So yeah, it's cool to say that I beat The Rock and Stone Cold in the same night. But to me, winning a world championship is like winning an Oscar. It's something that was awarded to you for your work by the
Yeah.
powers that be. And this year, you are the best actor. Now, it doesn't mean that there's not 50 other great actors that are doing great work, 50 other actors that didn't need an Oscar to make money and become big stars. And I find that's my best analogy for a pro wrestling championship, is that some guys win the Oscar and it's worthy. Some guys don't win an Oscar. It doesn't mean that this guy's not as good as this guy just because he doesn't have a championship. So becoming the undisputed champion was more of an award for fine work, and also maybe a little bit of like, okay, let's see how far you can go with this. And my undisputed championship reign was not a huge success if you go back and look through it. It's in concept it is. You beat The Rock and Stone Cold the same night, and then it just kind of went downhill from there. But as I continued on learning my craft and figure out what pro wrestling really was, and once again, like I told you, how to connect with the audience. Suddenly, when I won the world title again, whatever it was, 6 years later or 5 years later, I was ready. And then I won it, you know, the Ocho is the nickname because I've been a world champion 8 times. It's a lot different from when I was the undisputed champion for the first time. It's a lot more experience, a lot more of knowing just what it is that I do best and what it is that people that pay money to see me expect. So that's kind of the world champion journey for me. And what exactly does that mean? And to me, it's just putting on great performances all the time, just like a multiple Oscar winner would be.
I gotta ask as well, like when it comes to personal preference, right? What do you prefer, being a heel or a face?
Well, I mean, once again, I mean, the theme of this interview is just, you know, if you want to play the critical drinking game, how much does Chris Jericho say connect with the audience? But, you know, to answer your question, at the Ocho, every single one of those world titles I won when I was a heel. I've never been the world champion as a babyface. Not to say that I couldn't be, not to say that I shouldn't be, but it was never that way. So I guess maybe being a heel is more what I'm successful for. Even though I love being a babyface too, but I think it's hard to be a great heel because eventually people start liking you. And that's not just in
Right.
wrestling, that's in every movie. Look at the greatest heels, the Terminator. Watch the first Terminator. It's terrifying. Then you
Yeah.
watch the second Terminator and he becomes the good guy. You know why? Because he's so fucking cool. He can't be a bad guy anymore. And it's the same thing with Hannibal Lecter or Freddy Krueger or, I mean, Heath Ledger's the Joker. Had Heath not passed away, the next Joker appearance, he would have been a huge babyface because he was so entertaining and amazing. So it's really hard to make people hate you for long periods of time. So if you can do that, you're always more valuable as the foil. You know, you can't have a great dragon slayer without a really evil, vicious, powerful dragon. That's kind of
Yeah.
how we look at it.
Well, I think Rowdy Roddy Piper once did like a great promo on Hulk Hogan where he's like, "Would they have cheered for you as loudly if they didn't boo for me?" And I thought that was a fucking perfect way of summing it
That's it.
up. Like that's what you need, you
Hulk,
know?
Hulk, Hulk Hogan was the Dragon Slayer, and Piper was the Dragon. You got to have that. So, I mean, wrestling is not rocket science. It's very much a Shakespearean play. It's a modern day Shakespearean morality play. You got good guys, and you got bad guys, and you got drama, and you've got conflict, and you've got choices that the characters have to make, and everything in between. So, I've always considered that to be much more important than the actual moves in the ring, which is great to have great moves and it's great to be acrobatic and great to be physical. But if there's no good story behind it, what does it really all mean?
Yeah. No, I very much agree. Like if you're not invested in it, and it's the same with movies. It's like the same principle. You can have the most amazing action ever on screen, but if you're not emotionally invested in the characters doing it, it doesn't really matter. It's just colors on screen for you.
I'm not a fan of Marvel movies. I find them all
That
to be
makes two of us, mate. That makes two of us.
they're all the same. It's a bunch of guys with superpowers that are threatened by an alien invasion, and then they shut down the aliens and win. And then the great effects and explosions and bombs. And it's like I don't like any of it because there's really nothing of substance for me. And that's I understand Marvel movies make billions of dollars, but to me, it's all about the characters and the Game of Thrones is not about dragons. It's about
Yeah.
families fighting with each other. Walking Dead is not about zombies. It's about how would society rebuild if everything was taken away. I mean that's the crux of those shows. So
Well, to,
I like that element. You know, Ozark is not about money laundering. It's about how does a family, turn from good to bad and still stay together as a family. Like it's just I love that element of the storytelling.
no, absolutely. I mean, to put this into context as well, like I just reviewed a film recently called Boiling Point. It's set in a London restaurant, and it's all done in one continuous take. It's like 90 minutes long, and it's one take, the whole thing. No special effects, no alien invasions, no explosions, just a bunch of people stressing and trying to do all the shit they got to do with all their personal dramas and stuff in between. And I was more gripped by that than I'd been by pretty much any Marvel superhero movie. That's
And
the
that,
difference.
yeah, and that's why I created the Painmaker character that we're talking about the graphic novel was that it was something I wanted to do when I was in Japan. I started I had a real resurgence there in 2018 where I left WWE and went to Japan. I headlined the Tokyo Dome three different times, 3 years in a row, 18, 19, 20, pre-pandemic. And when I was there, I felt something was missing. I wanted something a little bit more evil. I didn't want to just be Chris Jericho from WWE in New Japan. So I came up with a Painmaker character. What would a serial killer look like if he was a wrestler? What does that mean to me? My interpretation, Chris Jericho, and I kind of came up with some makeup and the jacket that had the spikes that I just had made. It's like this seems a little bit more evil. Now I can kind of get into this character and really kind of wreak havoc in Japan. And then when I was thinking, what more can I do with it? I was thinking, how many more fucking superhero movies are we going to see of Batman and Spider-Man and Superman? We've seen 20 origin stories of all
Yeah.
of, and now they're doing Ant-Man and Wasp Woman. Like I was a fanatic of comic books in the late 70s, early 80s. Ant-Man was the jobber of jobbers, low level, no
Yeah.
one cared. And they're making movies on this guy. Sooner or later, someone's going to have to create a different character, a different superhero. So I thought with the Painmaker, if we start with the NFTs and with the graphic novels and make a backstory where he's an intergalactic serial killer that reformed himself, but he still deep down inside sometimes has a desire to kill innocent people. But in the meantime, he's scouring the galaxy for other serial killers to battle them and kill them. Now I've got something I can play with that sooner or later, I'll do it, dude. I'll create a Painmaker movie. And at least I'll give you an option of something other than the same ones you see over and over again with a story behind it and a whole fantastic world that we can get into. That's why I did it.
Sign me up, man, honestly, because like when it comes to movies like this, I would rather go down a darker path and do something really edgy and interesting.
Yeah.
I'd like if that's the better option, then yeah, that sounds awesome. I mean, I actually I've got the like a little promo video for the Painmaker comic, which I can just run here actually, and then talk a little bit about it. So hold on a second. So this is a graphic novel based on the character that you're now playing in All Elite Wrestling.
I don't play the character all the time. It's kind of an alter ego that I'll bust out if I'm having some kind of a really super violent match. But it is based on that character. And it's not like Chris Jericho's in the comic book. There's no Chris Jericho. It's the Painmaker.
Yeah.
And to me, it was like, I liked expanding the horizons of that. The same way, we're talking about all the years of wrestling and Fozzy, and the Painmaker character started in the ring, but what if I take it into a completely different place? And like I said, take it into the galaxy where he's now almost a bounty hunter out to kill others. He's a serial killer of serial killers, but you can go to any planet. It can be a giant scorpion. It can be he can go to a clown planet. It's a bunch of weird murderous clowns, or it could be a giant plant. I mean, whatever the serial killer is in your area corner of the universe, the Painmaker can go there. And to me, I like that. Like I said, I was a big comic book fan. I like stories, I like characters, and we're kind of combining all of that into what we're doing with this character in this comic.
Well, I think it ties in as well to what you were saying before about like with wrestling and the ability to connect with your audience and tell them compelling stories. It's theater in the ring with a lot of violence mixed in, and so you can take, I guess, a lot of the lessons that you've learned from all those years of doing this stuff and apply it to this graphic novel, like to tell this story. So I think it opens up a lot of avenues for you to do a lot of interesting stuff. And yeah, like I think we've all felt the need to kill a fucking clown on occasion. So yeah, I think I fully support this.
Well, and I also like, I like the flaw in that even though he's reformed, a reformed serial killer, he still has this urge to kill innocent people and has to do that. So it's not all wine and roses for this guy. He still has these moments where he knows he's going to do something that he doesn't want to do, but he has to. He's got no choice. So there's a conflict there as well. And I like that too. I like the idea of the anti-hero part of this as well. So
Absolutely.
it's something different in the world of comic books and a character that you could do. I don't know. You could probably do a pretty cheap movie of it, or you could do a big budget Hollywood movie. And sooner or later, I'm telling you, Marvel characters and DC characters can only go so long because they're not creating any new ones. So, it's like there's a Batman coming out again. Well, awesome. We've seen 80 Batmans. Sooner or later, someone's going to go, you know what? I'm done with the Batman. What else you got?
It's like, in that post Attitude Era in wrestling where they made it a lot more family friendly. And so you had a lot of these characters who were quite edgy and interesting before, but they had to fit them into a mold now to make them suitable for TV.
Right.
It's kind of like what they've done with superheroes. They've taken all these really interesting characters with loads of nuance, loads of like some are really dark and edgy and different. Others are like very virtuous or whatever. They just put them all into the same mold to try and make them suitable for general audiences. That's what made it so boring, and that's, I guess we just need more darker stuff. We need more interesting stuff. They've the Blade movies, they were great, right? With Wesley Snipes. Loved them. They're going to be doing a new one. I don't want to watch it.
But it's based on the concept of a flawed hero, and I like that, because if you're talking about Batman, well, his flaw is that his parents were murdered in front of him, and he's a rich playboy.
Yeah.
Tony Stark, same thing, but he's a rich playboy. Superman, well, he can do anything he wants, and his planet blew up. But it was really like inside. There's like these guys are just, they're pretty cool guys. I want someone that has like an issue where he's just like, I just don't even like myself anymore. It's almost like if it was like alcoholic superhero or something, but they would never do that properly because if they put a comic element in.
I approve of this.
So.
No, I think what was that one with Will Smith where he was playing like a superhero? Hancock. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he's like a superhero and he's basically Superman, but he's also a total asshole at the same time, and he doesn't really want to help anyone. I thought it was great. It's a great concept, because it's something different.
You couldn't really do a Hancock comic book. Like, I want to start this franchise as a PAINMAKER comic book where you can look at it and read it. And, like, it's a comic book, right? Like, all of these Marvel DCs come from comic books. So that's why I thought, let's try this. And we worked with Semcor to do some NFTs a year or two ago, just kind of to tip the foot in the water. And they did really well. And now it's like, this is still going to be an NFT, which, as you saw in the preview, it allows it to live and breathe. And if someone shoots a gun, the gun shoots. We also have a physical model, just the comic book, because we're still 1 foot in the present and 1 foot in the future, to where people still like having something in their hand. And I get that too. But I think over the next 3, 4, 5 years, that's going to disappear the same way that DVDs disappear. Like, if I gave you a DVD today or a CD, you'd be like, what am I fucking supposed to do with this? I don't even have a CD player. I go in my car, I can't play a CD.
I mean, I'm old as fuck, so I remember them. But like, yeah,
you have one.
Yeah, I've got a DVD player kicking around. Yeah, I don't know about CDs, but
it's kicking around. Someone gave me a Blu-ray the other day. So I think I got a Blu-ray player, but I don't know what to do with it. So I think that's NFTs is the next step in this technology that continues to move forward and forward. Was if I told you, 20 years ago that, oh, hey man, I got a In Search of Darkness Blu-ray here. And you'd say in 20 years, this is going to be obsolete. I'd be like, you're crazy, critical drinker. You're nuts. You're just drunk.
Probably.
Take this and you can put your drink on it because that's basically what it's good for. If I want to watch In Search of Darkness, I go watch it streaming. So there's a free plug for In Search of Darkness. But it's the same thing with the PAINMAKER and all this other stuff that we're working with, in that you still want to make people happy that are in the present, but we're moving towards the future, which is going to be probably a complete NFT market and a complete NFT world.
Yeah, but it's not like the kind of NFTs that they were trying to show like a year or two ago, where it was like, oh, buy this piece of digital artwork and it will, go up in value by 100% or whatever. It's just literally a key for accessing your graphic novel. That's all it is.
Well, the thing is too, there's also a huge community of people that are NFT disciples that are all into this. And more artists are getting involved in this. Avenged Sevenfold, huge band on a worldwide basis, are moving basically their whole catalog over to NFTs. So I think you'll see the technology slowly continue to move in that direction. Once again, the same way streaming was not a thing 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Now it's like any movie that comes out, what platform is it on? Because you want to watch it. You want to watch it now, and you hit the app, and there it is, right?
Yeah. Well, listen, I know I've only got you for a short amount of time, and there's a bunch of people that have sent a bunch of questions in on Super Chats. If it's okay with you, could I maybe put them to you?
Yes,
all right, let's see what we got for you. All right, the first one is Stephen Bobo, who says, question for Chris Jericho. Who's the biggest nerd, you or Kenny Omega?
Nerd? Yeah, probably Kenny. And Kenny would definitely agree with that, so it's not talking out of school. He went to a concert once of like a symphony playing video game music. And I was like, that's super cool, but that's like really nerdy.
I appreciate that. I'm going
to draw the line at that one. So yeah, Kenny probably more so than me. But what's a nerd nowadays? He loves video games, and doesn't everyone love video games? So maybe I'm the nerd.
I'm right.
Maybe for the first time since I was 16, I'm the real nerd here.
I don't know, I'm pretty nerdy at times. Next one is from RRTNZ, who says, Hail Drinker and Chris, people don't understand the incredible athleticism and skill that it takes to perform pro wrestling. Absolutely. And the sheer fucking risks that are involved. Like, damn. Essentially, every time you go in the ring, you're taking your life in your hands. Also, Chris, what is the most challenging or dangerous stunt that you've ever attempted? Cheers.
Um, I mean, yeah, wrestling is dangerous, and I think that's something that people don't quite understand the risks that are behind it. Um, and obviously, we know what we're doing, but it's the same thing when you hear about like a stuntman who gets injured in filming a movie, or sometimes, heaven forbid, a stuntman will pass away. And they're very calculated, orchestrated stunts, but like I said earlier, it's live, and sometimes things go wrong, and you do get kind of hurt, and it just the wear and tear as well. I remember somebody told me, I think a doctor once told me that every time you take a bump, which is you get hit, you fall on the mat, it's the equivalent of getting hit by a car going 15 kilometers an hour, 10 miles an hour. So, like, imagine that. Imagine getting hit by a car at 15 clicks an hour multiple times in a match.
Yeah.
But then, anytime you take falls from high places, I had to take a fall off a cage a few years ago, which is pretty terrifying just in concept. We did a thing last year, Eddie Kingston and I, with a barbed wire where I had to get thrown off the ring into a barbed wire kind of spider webby thing. And even though it's not complete barbed wire, there's enough barb on that wire that I don't know if I really want to be taking falls onto this, but you get those ladder matches are always crazy. Something always happens with that. I had my teeth snapped in two by a ladder, looked like Dumb and Dumber. So anytime you're in the ring, you just never know what's going to happen. So it's not so much what's the dangerous stunt. It's just being in there in general could be very dangerous at any point in time.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, the one that always freaked me out, right, was the idea of getting thrown onto thumbtacks that had
Yeah.
been scattered across the ring. Because I saw Ric Flair do it once, and I actually heard him scream out like, "Oh shit!" And I just thought that seems pretty real. That seems like it would really fucking hurt. I
Yeah,
can't imagine what that must be like.
thumbtacks are bad, really bad, but it's even worse when you get them in your hands. That's the hardest. So yeah, I took one bump in thumbtacks, and I think that's probably my thumbtack bump card filled.
Yeah, you could say you've done it at least, I guess.
Exactly.
Silo 101 says, Drinker, I really need to ask, sorry, I need you to ask Chris Jericho if he ever spent time at Deerfoot Mall in Calgary, Alberta in the 2000s. I swear I saw him there as a kid. Because I'm sure
Yeah.
you're going to remember being at a shopping mall.
No, I do. I do. I used to live in
Oh,
Calgary.
shit.
I mean, like you said, I trained with the Hart brothers, and I lived there until about 1997. So, and then I went back there quite a bit. So it's quite possible you saw me walking around, but I used to actually live right by Deerfield Mall as well. So a little bit of Calgary trivia for you. So yes, I used to go there back when people actually went to malls. I don't think I've been to a mall in 5 years at this point.
Yeah, just people get everything from Amazon now. TLJ Screwjob, I like the name, says, since my screen name is a portmanteau of two wildly hated things, which one is worse? The Last Jedi for the movie industry or the Montreal Screwjob for the wrestling industry? I guess this is a question for yourself.
I'm trying to think I'm trying to remember what the Last Jedi was. Was that the word?
All right, so that was that shitty Star Wars movie where Luke Skywalker dies at the end of
Oh
it.
yeah. They went through a phase there where those movies weren't too bad, but that one was brutal because once again, Luke Skywalker dies. Is that the one where Princess Leia was flying through space as well?
Yeah,
That one
that's the
drove me
one.
crazy because it's like we've been living with Star Wars for 40 odd years. No time has a Jedi ever flown through space with no breathing apparatus. Total fucking bullshit. And then Luke Skywalker's got to be the worst Jedi ever. All we ever hear is how cool Jedis are. And he shows glimpses of it, but I thought that Jedi, he should have pulled all the Jedi tricks to blow up all the I don't remember where they were on the red planet.
Oh, yeah, those walker things.
Walkers. He should have just used his Jedi mind trick to destroy them all, or else he's just a hologram or whatever. I don't remember, man. All that stuff is just getting way too complicated for me. Just give me Empire Strikes Back, and I'll watch that 10 times, and I'll be happy.
Quite right, man. There it goes. If Chris Jericho reckons that your Star Wars movie's shit, then it's fucking shit. The next one is Ray Vineyard, who says, thank you, Drinker, and thank you, Chris Jericho. Nice, thanks, man.
Thank you.
Throbby Bobby says, say my name. Well, I just did.
Frothy
Stardust.
Frothy
Yeah.
Bobby, Frothy Bobby, Frothy Bobby.
Stardom says, "Hello, drinker, and a question for Mr. Jericho. Going to All In London in August. Any chance that you will be there with the JAS, the Jericho
Of
Appreciation
course, I'm going to be
Society?"
there. We just sold 60,000 tickets on the pre-sale for our show at Wembley Stadium at the end of August. So, of course, I'm going to be there. You will see me. I don't know who I'm going to be wrestling yet, but we're going to put together something very special. And I mean, hey, it's the most famous venue, home of my favorite gig of all time, which is Queen at Live Aid. So you
Nice.
know I'm going to be there.
Wembley's a hell of a stadium, man.
It's amazing.
HP Artcraft says, "My dream is to be on the list of Jericho."
Mm. Yeah, man, you can't request to be on the list. So I went through a phase there where every single person who wanted an autograph said, "Can you write? You just made the list." I'm like, "No, you can't request to be on the list. You can't ask me to put someone on the list. Hey, can you put my ex girlfriend on the list? No, make your own damn list. I decide who goes on the list. Now everybody wants to be on the list, so there's no more list anyway. So who cares? No, you can't go on the list because it's not 2016 anymore."
Nice. Josh says, "Chris Jericho was part of greatness that defined my childhood, and that was before his amazing music career." I never even got a chance to ask you about Fozzy, man. I'm sorry.
Save it for part two.
Yeah, there we go. Keith Ordaz says, "Cheers, drinker and Chris. I've got to ask Chris, what was it like unmasking Rey Mysterio?"
I don't think I ever really. I think I might have unmasked him once because then I tried to unmask him again, but the little wizard had another mask underneath his mask, so it was quite whimsical. But yeah,
That's the thing. It's like my sunglasses. I've just got another pair underneath this
yeah,
one.
that's the thing. Yeah, I've done that before too. Yeah, always great working with Ray. He was awesome.
Nice. What's the next one? Unsung Underground says, "Hey Chris, where's the Nasty Savage documentary? The world needs to know the glory of Nasty Ronnie."
Yeah, man. I mean, I don't. I think it'd probably be quite interesting. I mean, I would love it. I don't know how many other people in the world would even know, but it's funny. Like when I grew up in Winnipeg, I was a huge fan of Nasty Savage, and when I moved down to Florida, my wife Jessica is actually from Brandon, Florida, which is the home of Nasty Savage. So I met them quite early on into my tenure in Tampa. So if you're wondering what the fuck I'm talking about, Google it. One of the greatest, most underrated, and weirdest heavy metal bands of all time.
Nice. Dale says, "Goldberg versus Jericho Bad Blood 2003 is one of my favorite matches ever. Huge Y2J fan."
It's more of a statement than a question, I imagine.
Yeah, pretty much.
Thank you.
Tiberius, he gave us 100 Canadian dollars, says, "I just want to support the drinker." Well, you should want to support Chris Jericho as well, but thank you
By
very much,
supporting
man.
the drinker, you're supporting Chris Jericho by proxy.
Yeah, you're enabling my alcoholism, so I appreciate that for sure. Benzilla says, "Question for Jericho. How much do you think the death of crowd camera flashes hurt the atmosphere of a match? Mania 17 had an organic light show we don't see now." I don't know if is that still a thing? Like that you don't get camera flashes?
Well, no one has flash anymore because they all use their phones, right? So
Yeah. Do they? Well, sometimes they'll flash, won't they? If they need to.
you know another big difference now that people have cell phones, and Tony Khan pointed this out to me. He's so right. Do you remember if you look at those old wrestling shows, everybody had signs,
Yeah.
right? You bring signs. You start Raw, there'd be signs everywhere. Signs. There's no signs anymore because everybody's too busy holding up their phone. They don't have two hands to hold up a sign. So
Well, are they banned now as well? Like, I always feel like there's going to be guys at the gate, like policing you, saying like, "Oh, you got a sign that says like,
I don't
something
think so.
controversial."
I don't think
Oh,
so. I mean,
okay.
even if something really stupid, you get rid of it. But I'm just saying the majority of signs are just gone. So
Yeah. Okay. I'll do a couple more and I will finish up because I know you're a busy man.
sounds good.
Joe Crazy says, "Oh, cool. Drinker is interviewing the guy from the Terrifier 2. Uh, for real though, cool to see you on here, Chris Jericho. You're a true legend of the wrestling business."
Well, and true legend of Terrifier 2 as well.
That was a movie. That certainly was. Damn. Oh, that was mean, that movie.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I need to review that come Halloween.
Yeah. Well, I think there's going to be a third one coming soon as well, so that'll be cool.
Jeez, how are you going to top that second one, man? Honestly.
They topped the first one, so I'm sure he's got something in his mind. Damian Leone, the director and the writers, nuts.
Nice. Insane Hippie says, Jericho, you need to teach the younger wrestlers in AEW to sell a move properly and stop trying to do all their moves every match. Familiarity breeds contempt. Don't forget that. Okay.
That's from Man Yells at Cloud 27.
Yeah. And the last one I'll do from Carrie D, who says, I very much appreciate your channel, Drinker. I'm happy for your upcoming movie and to see your channel growing so much with fantastic interviews. Well, thank you very much.
What does that have to do with me?
I know, I'm sorry. I'm just reading them in order. I didn't. I'm sorry. I wanted to find one that was personalized to you. I'll see if there's one more I could see. Yeah. Carrie D, who says, Hi, Chris. Do you Diamond Dallas's DDPY? A couple of other wrestlers do. Curious if you do or do other no impact workouts. It helps me from a
talking about yoga. I did yoga for about 10 years, but now all of my issues have been cleared up. So, but if you're thinking about doing DDPY, I 1000% highly recommend it.
Nice. Well, honestly, I know that you're very short on time. I want to say thank you, man. Like, it's been awesome talking to you tonight, and I really appreciate you coming on for this. And thank you to everyone who's super chatted us tonight. If there's any that I've missed, I'll catch up with them shortly. But Chris Jericho, like the link to your graphic novel, The Painmaker, is in the description. If you go in with the Critical Drinker discount code, which is in the description, you'll get a 10% discount on it as well. So, yeah, man. Thank you for this, and I really appreciate you coming on.
Awesome. And next time we're in Glasgow, let's meet up and you can buy me a drink.
Yes. All right. Sounds good to me, man. Thank you.
Cheers, man. Oh, and by the way, the guitar player of Fozzy, my partner Rich Ward, is a big fan of yours. So there you go.
Nice.
Fans everywhere, man.
I like it. Thank you, man.
Thanks, bud. Bye.
All right, it's just me, so I will do the final few super chats and then finish up this live stream because it's been awesome tonight having Chris on. Let me see. Jack Stretch Jones says Painmaker, Danhausen, Abaddon tag team. Well, it sounds pretty good to me. I'm not gonna lie. Let me see. I'm just refreshing the list here, so in case I've missed any. Okay. Oh yeah, here we go. Idiot Chin says they tried to do the self-hating alcoholic slant with Iron Man, and they succeeded to some degree, but the studio kneecapped getting really dark with it. Yes, I think they just glossed over the whole Iron Man like being an alcoholic thing. Like I'm pretty sure in the comic books, like he's much more consumed by it, and it really handicaps his character in terms of his development. But they wanted to make it more family friendly, I guess. They just show him like occasionally having a whiskey. That's rookie numbers right there. SJ Nix says, I didn't expect this today. Lately I found myself saying, you just made the list. Bud Light and Nike were the most recent additions. Yeah, don't blame you. I still buy physical CDs from Japan. Best rock metal is coming out of Japan right now. I'm glad you're enjoying the stuff that they're putting out, man. And yeah, definitely buy physical media. Mecha Boo gave me $10, so thank you. Nostalgia Page says, I'm interacting with a celebrity. Yeah, me too. Join the club tonight. It's great. TLJ Screwjob says, speaking of things going bad live, just watched the YouTube short talking about No Mercy 2002. You tried the planned line, saw ending and middle rope broke. Oh, God. That sounds awful. Yeah. Like I said earlier, I read Chris's autobiography, and he was talking a few times about like in his early days of wrestling, like when he was in these like rings that were just kind of set up on the day, like there was almost no give to the ropes or the turnbuckles, and so when you tried to bounce off them, you just like hit into this thing, and like it would just cut right into you. So it sounded awful. Silo 101 says, you just confirmed I saw you as a kid. Now I'm sad that I didn't say hi. I still play as you in WWE Day of Reckoning. Love you, Chris. That's awesome. It's cool that you saw him. Ryan Thompson says, can Drinker make the list, Jericho, please? I don't know if I qualify for that, man. Unfortunately, you can't demand to be on it. You have to be added. Venom Kititsu says, any of the boys backstage played the early wrestling games when they released? WCW, NWO, Revenge, WF No Mercy. I don't know if what you can say from that. I'd imagine they would have done, because they would have had to do the mocap and stuff for it and lend their likeness to it. You'd think they want to play it, you know. What's the next one? David Cunningham says, Chris Jericho is a wrestling legend. Great podcast. Thank you very much. It was great to talk to him. It really was. Gunner Stations says, good evening, guys. Massive fan of Chris Jericho and you too, Drinker. Thanks. Can you ask if Chris is going to do more work with Vice? Your work for the Chris Benoit and Owen Hart episodes were really well balanced for hard topics. Yeah, so I never got a chance to ask Chris about that. Unfortunately, we ran out of time. I'm not sure what he's going to do on that score. Frozen in the 80s says, how has the Khan family affected your career? Everyone in Jacksonville loves you, Chris. I'm not sure what this has a reference to. I'm sorry. I'm sorry he's gone by this point. And Bastard Luigi says, gentlemen, crazy awesome to see the two of you talking together. Interested in seeing where the Painmaker comic go. Have one on me, Drinker. Thank you very much, man. I've still got a little bit of rum left, so I'll enjoy this. Anyway, well, that's all that I've got in terms of the super chats and stuff. You guys, I appreciate you joining us for this little interview tonight. Hope you got something out of it. Thank you for all the super chats. It's been very generous as always. And thank you to my mods for doing their usual awesome job. But that is all I've got for today. So, go away now.